Hello YouTube, I'm Bryan Steeksma, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the relatively new Peavey AT-200, which is the guitar with auto-tune. So obviously we have a guitar here that can tune itself in the auto-tune mode. It also has what they call solid tune intonation, which means that it's in tune all the way up the neck. Okay. They also say that it doesn't interfere with any of your bends or any of your little nuanced playing that you want to do in some solos or some chords and stuff, so we'll check that out too. Has the ability to do some pretty wicked alternate tunings. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's go over some of these things. So the first thing is the string tuning. Now this guitar does exactly what it says. If your guitar is out of tune, no matter how badly or how, you know, if your G strings are slightly out of tune, it'll tune that. If your whole thing is out of whack, it'll tune that too. So it's a pretty powerful guitar. Now remember, it's all done with software in the guitar, so the actual tension of your strings is not going to change when you tune your guitar. So the acoustic sound of your actual strings will still be out of tune, even though what's coming out of the amp will be in tune. So let's just take a look at how that will sound. So I'm just running through a Gens Benz Black Pearl 30, got a compression pedal on just slightly, and I'll kick on my distortion pedal too when I do some other stuff here. So, but let's just do it with a clean sound for now. So this is without auto-tune on. So I mean, it sounds pretty good. They're a little, if you know, depending on how well trained your ear is, you'll hear, you know, a little bit of out of tune-ness there. But for the most part, it's pretty good. Okay, so but string tuning. So I'm gonna go ahead and detune my string. So first I'll start off with just a subtle problem. So let's say we want to do our G chord, but it ends up sounding like this. Okay, and that's just with my G string tuned down a little bit. So it should sound like this, but it sounds like this. Okay, so all we gotta do is switch on the auto tune, strum our guitar, tune it, and there it is. Okay, so it tunes it really well. But again, notice so the actual string is still out of tune, so you haven't actually fixed anything on your neck. So keep that in mind, because if you're playing quietly, you're going to hear the acoustics of the strings over whatever amp you're using if you're playing quietly. So as long as your amp is louder than your actual guitar, you should be fine. Okay, so now I'm going to take auto-tune off again. Okay, so that's out of tune, but now let's just do something even a little bit more crazy. And we'll do one that's sharp too. We'll do the G string sharp. Yeah, okay. That's disgusting. Okay, I'll play a I'll play a riff here. I feel like I'm a beginner again. Okay, so that's disgusting is what that is. Okay, so there we go. So this is out of tune. I'm going to turn auto-tune on. Now I haven't tuned it yet, so it's still going to sound out of tune. Strum all the strings. There we go, now we're in tune. Pretty cool. But again, remember, strings are still out of tune, so it hasn't fixed anything, and more importantly, it hasn't fixed your ability to, or your inability to tune your guitar perhaps. So if you're a beginner, don't buy this guitar just so you can rely on keeping your guitar in tune. You need to be able to develop your ear so you can discern between different pitches, no matter how big the difference between those pitches are. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly tune up my guitar back to normal tuning. So the guitar sounds pretty nice without the auto-tune on. Okay, so now one of the other things it says that it does is it doesn't interfere with some of your bends and some of your more nuanced playing. So let's just check it out how it sounds with bends. And there was also a question as to whether or not it sounded good through distortion. Okay, well, let's test that out too. So I got my DS1, putting auto-tune on. Okay, so it really does, for the most part, stay out of the way of your bends. If you are doing something a little bit more subtle, it can squash it. So you'll notice here I'm bending, and it is squashing it. But I think it's got something to do with how fast you're bending it also, because if I do the same sort of thing but a little bit quicker, it seems to get out of the way. Okay, but that's relatively minor. For the most part, when I'm playing any solo bits with this, I find that it does stay out of the way pretty well. Okay, alternate tuning. Okay, so that works pretty well. Baritone guitar. Now, when we get into baritone guitar, where you fret the 5th fret here and tune it, things start to sound a little bit fake for my ears. It sounds kind of like just playing with really floppy strings. But the cool thing is it is in tune all the way, even though you're chopped down to baritone. Okay? So it's pretty good. I mean, it's not bad at all. One of my favorite things to do is to take half of my guitar, top 3 strings, and turn those into bass and keep my guitar on the bottom 3 strings, so you can have a combination of bass and guitar with just one person playing and one guitar. That nice heavy bass sound. Now it's no substitute for a bass player, obviously, because it does still sound like it's just a guitar tuned really low. Okay, so it's gonna sound a little bit hokey. Okay, but that's not what this is for. It's you can use this. It opens a lot of great doors creatively. For a songwriter, for a guitarist, you name it. But my recommendation is that if you're a beginner, stay away from this guitar. If your sole purpose is you want to use it to keep your guitar in tune all of the time, without bothering learning how to tune it by ear. Okay, it's important that you know how to tune and keep your guitar in tune, just using your ear. Okay. Now for advanced players, you're gonna have a lot of fun just experimenting with different sounds that you can get out of this guitar. You know, with open tuning. My slide's not around here anywhere, but so it's great for tuning on the fly. Now in live situations, it's going to be just fantastic to not have to, for those of you who are not so easily glib on stage, to have to bore the audience with some stupid story while you sit there and fiddle with your tuning pegs. You know, if your guitar is just slightly out of tune, here's the other cool thing, is you can just turn you don't have to do that annoying swoop thing. That's annoying, for me anyways. You can turn your volume down and it'll still tune your guitar. So you don't have to annoy people with that noise there, and you don't have to annoy your audience. The other thing is that you don't have to then, if you're a guitarist in the studio and you use a bunch of different sort of chord voicings, if you play anything like I play, you want to use different voicings all over the neck and different sort of stretchy patterns and whatnot. My producer would always get on my case because there was never a guitar that would have all of my different chord voicings in tune all of the time. So we'd have to stop takes and tune for certain chords, and sometimes you would get a good, in between where you could just manipulate your hands and keep the chords in tune, but for the most part you have to stop and tune up, and that's just the nature of studios these days especially. So the nice thing about this guitar is that you won't have to worry about that type of stuff anymore, because it's going to keep every single chord that you play is going to be perfectly in tune. So it's a very nice feature all the way up the neck. Okay, so a lot of fun stuff to be to experiment and explore with here. Oh, and one thing that I do not like about this guitar, though, is there's a huge difference between just the output levels between active and inactive mode. So if I turn my compressor off, and that's kind of why I have the compressor on, so this is with auto-tune on, this is with it off. I was a bit shocked when I first picked that up, or picked up the guitar and found that out. And I immediately got on the email to Peavey and asked him, hey, is this my guitar? Is it just my guitar? Is it faulty? Is it supposed to be like this? I can't imagine you guys, making a guitar and having this the default sort of, the standard. And basically they replied back saying, yeah, this is the way it's made. And they also actually said that I should be playing in auto-tune mode anyway, so basically what's the big deal? So I kind of a little bit offended about that, because I like to have my guitar work in a uniform manner no matter what sort of mode I'm in, and I like to have control over the volume and the input that is being put into my amp, and because that's pushing the tubes. If you're using a tube amp, your output of your guitar is pushing those tubes, and that changes the dynamics, that changes the sound of changes your sound. And yeah, there's another thing, it's not just volume difference, it's also when auto-tune is inactive or bypassed, there's actually a higher frequency response. or in other words, when auto-tune is active, the high end is slightly rolled off, almost like your tone volume, your tone knob is down to maybe 5/10. So that's kind of a big issue for me. It's okay if you're just playing one sort of thing, you know, the whole time, but if you need to, you know, if you really don't want the sound of auto-tune for just, you know, one part of the song or something, you have to make volume and tone adjustments to compensate. So I'll give you an example. So here's with auto-tune on. So it's a nice sound. It's got some high end there. It's, you know, mellow. But if I wanted to all of a sudden switch out, to turn my volume down, you know, 4 pegs. I had to turn my tone down, you know, 5 pegs or so. So that's with auto-tune off. So there's a pretty big difference, and you can hear. I don't know if you can hear that on the tape, but I can hear it. My tubes are reacting to my guitar differently than if auto-tune was on and it's less of a signal. Alright guys, so I think that pretty much covers everything. Leave me your comments below if you have any questions about how this guitar works, and give me a comment, give me a shout, let me know what you think of the video, and I'll see you next time. Cheers guys.